Okay, folks, so we're trying a little experiment today. This is the partially constructed big Russian rat snake viv that will eventually be Mokosh's home. We put some additional things in here that she's familiar with, and we're going to let her have some supervised time in here to check it out. Now, Mokosh has just hit a year old, so she is not quite big enough or old enough for me to be comfortable with her living in here yet. But she is a very active, very curious young rat snake. And she has a very large play tent, which I think I may have posted about elsewhere, possibly on the Insta channel or elsewhere on this channel. So what we're going to let her do is check out what will eventually be her adult home, because she is pretty determined to, shall we say, expand her horizons beyond her play tent. And this is a good test for me and for her. First of all, it gets her to become gradually familiar with this enclosure so that when she does eventually move in here as an adult, it won't be a huge transition for her. I've done this before with other snakes where I've let them have supervised exploring time in their larger enclosure before they actually move in, and that seems to smooth the transition process very well. But this is also an opportunity to give her a larger exploring area beyond her play tent. Since she has been very determined lately to get onto the floor, get onto the sofa, kind of expand her territory. It's a little hard to see her on this black PVC floor. But I also would quite like to see her test the boundaries of this enclosure and just get a sense of if there are any points that I might want to be cautious of when she eventually does move in. And you coming over here? So one of the large doors here is locked, and obviously I want to make sure that she can't get out of there. This door is open so that I can lean in and film her, but I am sat right at this door, so she's not going to go anywhere without my awareness or noticing her. Some of these things she is familiar with. So she is familiar with this tree. This is actually a tree intended for and designed for parrots, which was very kindly donated by a friend of mine who has a Senegal parrot. And they upgraded his tree perch, so he no longer needed this one. So I gave it a clean, and they very kindly donated it to the Legless Zoo. This is an orchid, which was doing really well until I overwatered it earlier this week, and now it's a little unhappy. So we're I'm hoping it will come back and it will be okay. It was thriving so well because I was kind of ignoring it and forgotten about it. Then I felt guilty and watered it, and it turned out that was a terrible thing to do. These are some succulents that did not survive, but the snakes seem to like climbing over it, and it's, well, a little box of dirt with some texture on it. And this is just a little box of logs. These are actually intended for a fire pit. They're under, therefore, well, fire pit and smoker, so they have no chemicals in them. They're untreated. So it's a box of logs for her to have a look at. But she's familiar with this and these things, and she's also familiar with that cork tube and the Halloween/autumn garland over there. These are things that she's very familiar with, but the rest of this is all new to her. And she does seem pretty interested. You can see how tiny she is in compared to this enclosure. This is a huge enclosure. It's approximately 5 foot long by, I think, 3 feet deep, maybe a little over. 5 foot tall on the tallest end. And I think it's about 3 foot tall on the short end. As you can see, it has a I will pull back very slightly. It fits under, in this alcove under my stairs. So this is a custom enclosure that I commissioned from a wonderful company here in the UK called Henderson Plastics. So they designed and produced this for me. It arrived fully assembled. There are no kind of joins or assembly points in this. They've also pre-cut some, if I can get them on camera here. I'm not sure if you can see. You can maybe see them up there. They've pre-cut some vents. So there's 3 vents at the top and 3 vents near the bottom here. I call this PVC. It's actually not. I can't remember the precise plastic it is. I'll maybe drop it in the description. But it's particularly well suited in that it's resistant to chemical attack, degradation, UV, all of that kind of thing. The only disadvantage with this type of plastic is because it's impervious to chemical attack, you actually can't use chemical fixatives on it. So that means you can't use glue, at least not without very extensive preparation and some pretty nasty chemicals. That being said, that's not been an issue for me in this build because you can drill things through it, you can cut it, you can bolt things to it in the same way as you would wood. So in that sense, it's still very easy to work with when installing all of these extra bits and pieces for her. She is a little hard to see because it is she is a black snake in a black plastic enclosure, but hopefully you can see her a little bit there. So she was very keen to expand her horizons beyond her play tent today. She was in the play tent for about an hour. And then she wanted to come out and did not seem interested in going back into her tub. She very much still wanted to be out. So I figured we could try this and see what she does. So as I mentioned, this enclosure is not finished yet. It's still very much a work in progress. I've been working on it on and off for a while now, but you can see I have these fake brickwork and building panels, so it's supposed to look a little bit like a broken down kind of ruin that's been taken over by nature. So we have these bracket fungi shelves, these other mushrooms up here, and various bits of cork and fake plants. I have silicone some sphagnum moss to these as well. This is actually a shelving unit that I kind of partially disassembled and have turned into some obviously climbing platforms. There are some holes through this that I've lined with silicone soaked felt just to make sure there's no sharp or jagged edges there. These are just standard floating shelves that you can get from any hardware outlet. These will eventually have things on them and be kind of a bit better camouflaged. These are, of course, just some wall-mounted planters that will have plants in them eventually. There's one on this side as well. And this is a large bit of tree that I found. Oh my goodness, you're up there already. There we go. Mokosh beautifully demonstrating just how well rat snakes climb. And certainly that was is the intention with this enclosure, is to provide as best I can a very complex 3-dimensional environment for her. Rat snakes do very well in the vicinity of human habitation. They love climbing walls, they love getting into everything. So I very much wanted to try as best I could to create an environment like that with lots of both horizontal and vertical opportunities for her to essentially just do rat snake things. You are just having a lovely time, which is delightful to see. She also shed, literally just yesterday, you can see the iridescence really developing on her. This is not even outdoor light, this is indoor light. When she's outside in the sun, when I kind of hold her and take her outside, that iridescence is even crazier. But you can see what a beautiful species Russian rat snakes are. She has gotten very, very dark. She started out as kind of buff and cream, and she will continue to get darker even than this. And those bands, they are beginning to turn yellow. They will continue to turn more yellow. And she is getting to be quite a big girl. So she's only 12 months old. She's just hit a year. These snakes live for approximately 20, 25 years, something like that. I believe Francis Coschieri had an older individual, I think, that made it to almost 30. But they are also a very large species of rat snake. So you can see how big she is at just a year old. These snakes tend to get north of 6 feet, somewhere between 6 and 7 feet is about as big as they get. I've anecdotally heard of bigger, but from what I understand, that seems unverified, or at least very unusual. But somewhere in the 6 to 7 foot range for a big Russian. But most of them will make it to at least 6 feet. They're quite a robust rat snake. Oh my goodness, girl, look at you. But as you can see, they very much have all of that rat snake skill when it comes to climbing. They are incredibly athletic, very, very active, and in my experience, very intelligent snakes. My word, girl, you are just an absolute delight. They're also very calm and they move quite deliberately. You can see they're not a particularly fast-moving species. They can, of course, move fast when they need to. But their natural inclination is much more that of fairly deliberate, albeit constant, movement. So this is a really nice test for both her and for me in terms of planning further stages in this build, of seeing where she's going to go and what she's going to do. Obviously, by the time she moves in here permanently, she will be much bigger. My anticipation would be to move her in here when she is around at least 2, possibly 3 years old. We'll see. So, of course, things that she can get into at this size, she will not be able to get into after another year or two's growth, which means that anything she can get into now that I can block off, intervene, adapt, will just make sure that she's even more secure when she does finally move in here permanently as an adult. But it's lovely to see her using these climbing opportunities in more or less the way I expected that she would. You having fun there, baby girl? So interesting, right? Such fun. Now, obviously, the actual plastic surface of the enclosure is too smooth for her to grip onto, but she can use these little gaps and edges between the panels that I fixed to the wall to climb around, move around, do rat snake things. I cannot tell you how much I am enjoying watching her do this. One of the huge joys for me in keeping snakes, along with obviously interacting with them, working with them, getting to know their personalities, doing things like target training, is constructing as best I can, kind of the best enclosures I can to allow them to show all of their natural behaviours, and then getting to watch them actually do that. and make use of and enjoy these opportunities and environments that I've been able to provide for them. And it's just one of the greatest joys, honestly. I think for me, that's why I tend to, as much as possible, like to get their adult enclosures kind of much earlier than they're actually going to need them, just so that I can invest the time. Because I do have a full-time job, which keeps me busy a lot of the time. So larger build projects like this take me quite a while. And it's nice to have that luxury of time to really be able to provide these things for her. Oh my goodness, baby girl, look at you. This is just a delight watching you enjoy all of this. Look at you rat snaking just so well. I think you've already found literally everything in this enclosure, pretty much. You've not realised that that's a hide, but I don't actually think you're interested in hiding right now. I think you're just interested in inspecting everything. So here's one of the things I'm curious about, because these vents, I believe, are too small for her to get through at this size. They will certainly be too small when she's an adult. But the truth of the matter is I genuinely do not know. So if she does notice them and express interest, I do kind of want to see if she's able to get through them. If she is, of course, I'll just discourage her, redirect her, or kind of intercept her on the other side. But so far, she doesn't really appear to be considering those a viable exit point, which is good. That's what you'd hope for. Yeah, she's much more interested in all of the fun panels and shelving. Excellent. That is nicely reassuring. So as I mentioned, this does have a certain number of vents built in already, but this plastic is very workable. You can kind of drill into it. You can cut it the way you would wood, essentially. It doesn't splinter or crack the way that PVC might. So if additional ventilation is needed, I will of course provide it, but it's good to have those cut in already. I don't think additional ventilation will be needed, but we'll see. Of course, there is no substrate in this enclosure at this time. We're still building it, so I don't quite know how this will perform in terms of the humidity. I have tested that basking spot, and at that height and at that shelving height, it's pretty much perfect for the temperatures that she would want. But in terms of humidity and airflow, that's something that will be tested when obviously all of the building has been done and we start setting up the bioactive components like the plants and the substrate and the cleanup crew. So we may have to tweak the ventilation at that stage, but certainly for now, it's not too much of an issue. Oh my goodness, girl, you are just having the most wonderful time, and it is just so delightful to see you enjoying this. Look at you go. Look at you go. So yeah, there we go, folks. Just a little catch up with Mokosh and her eventual adult build, getting a full inspection of her new, well, eventual new home. And a beautiful demonstration of just how arboreal a semi-arboreal snake can be. So, thank you so much for watching. If you watched, thank you if you made it to the end. If you would like to see more of Mokosh and the rest of the Legless Zoo and these enclosures, please do follow, check back in. I upload pretty irregularly because, as I mentioned, I do have a full-time job, sadly. But please do join us in subsequent videos, and you can check out some other work here on the Legless Zoo in terms of target training, and there's a few feeding videos there also. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for enjoying Mokosh's absolute relentless energy with me, and we hope to see you in the next one.